What if everything your parents told you about buying a home was wrong? What if the single biggest investment most Americans make is actually the thing quietly draining their wealth for decades? I know that sounds crazy. It goes against everything we've been taught. But stick with me for the next 8 minutes, because the numbers don't lie, and what I'm about to show you completely change how I think about money. My name is Nate, and I've spent the last 10 years working at Pullman's Bank. In that time, I've sat across the table from thousands of Americans, young couples, first-time buyers, retirees, all chasing the same dream, owning a home. I'm here to give you the information that the real estate industry, the mortgage industry, frankly, the industry I work in, doesn't want you to have. Because an informed buyer is a slower buyer, and a slower buyer is bad for business. So let's get into it. Here's the first thing people say when they defend buying. But Nate, I'm building equity. And yes, technically that's true. But let me show you what that actually looks like in real life. On a $400,000 home with a 30-year mortgage at today's interest rate, which is sitting around 7%, your monthly payment is roughly $2,660. Sounds manageable, right? Now here's the part your realtor glosses over. In your very first payment, only about $327 of that goes toward your actual principal, toward that equity you keep hearing about. The rest? $2,333 goes straight to the bank as interest. You're essentially renting money from a bank, and in the early years, you're paying a premium for the privilege. It takes you nearly 20 years before you're paying more principal than interest on a standard 30-year mortgage. 20 years. That's not building wealth fast. That's a slow, expensive climb that most people never fully understand until it's too late. Let's talk about the costs that don't show up in your mortgage payment, because this is where most buyers get completely blindsided. When I sit down with clients at the bank and walk them through the real numbers, not the marketing numbers, their faces change. First, there's property tax. Depending on your state, that can be anywhere from 1% to 3% of your home's value every single year. On a $400,000 home, that's up to $12,000 a year just in taxes. Money you never see again, money that doesn't build equity, money that goes up as your home value goes up. Then there's homeowners insurance, HOA fees if you're in a community, and the one that really gets people, maintenance. Financial experts universally recommend budgeting 1% to 2% of your home's value per year for maintenance and repairs. That's another $4,000 to $8,000 per year on a $400,000 home. The roof, the HVAC, the water heater, the foundation crack you didn't see coming, they all find you eventually. Renters? They make one call and it gets fixed. That freedom has a real dollar value that almost nobody accounts for when they're comparing renting versus buying. Here's something the 2025 economy has made crystal clear. Flexibility is money. The job market has completely transformed. Remote work, tech layoffs, career pivots, new opportunities popping up in cities you never imagined living in. When you own a home, you're anchored. You can't just pick up and move for a $30,000 salary increase without going through the nightmare of selling, which, by the way, costs you 5% to 6% in realtor commissions alone. On a $400,000 home, that's $20,000 to $24,000 out of your pocket just to exit. Renters can move in 60 days. That mobility means renters can chase higher-paying opportunities, lower cost of living cities, or simply better life situations without a massive financial penalty. And here's the investment angle that really makes people sit up straight. If instead of putting $80,000 into a down payment and closing costs, you invested that money into a diversified index fund with a historical average return of around 10% annually, in 10 years, that $80,000 becomes approximately $207,000. Your down payment didn't just sit in a house waiting for the market to maybe go up. It was working hard for you every single day. Let's ground this in today's reality, because the 2025 housing market is genuinely unlike anything we've seen in a generation. Mortgage rates are still elevated. Home prices in most major metros have not come down meaningfully despite those high rates. And affordability is at its worst level in over 40 years, according to multiple housing indices. What does that mean in plain English? It means that for the average American household, buying a median-priced home today requires a far greater percentage of their income than at virtually any point in modern history. Meanwhile, the rental market in many cities has actually softened. New apartment supply has come online in a big way, giving renters more negotiating power, more options, and better deals. I've personally seen clients at the bank stretch themselves dangerously thin to qualify for a mortgage in this environment. High debt-to-income ratios, depleted savings, no emergency fund because culturally they felt like they had to buy. And that pressure, that cultural guilt around renting, is genuinely one of the most financially dangerous things I witness. Renting in 2025 isn't settling. In many cases, it is the smarter, more strategic choice. Now look, I'm not saying buying a home is always wrong. I want to be straight with you because that's the whole point of this channel. Buying makes sense under specific conditions. You plan to stay in the same city for at least 7 to 10 years. You have a genuine 20% down payment saved, not borrowed, not gifted under pressure, so you're not bleeding on PMI on top of everything else. Your monthly mortgage payment, including taxes and insurance, is no more than 25% of your take-home pay. And critically, you have a fully funded emergency fund separate from your down payment, so you're not one broken furnace away for financial stress. If all 4 of those boxes are checked, buying can absolutely be a solid long-term decision. But if even one of those conditions isn't met, you need to seriously ask yourself whether you're buying because it makes mathematical sense or because someone made you feel like renting is failing. Those are 2 very different reasons, and only one of them builds real wealth. So here's what I want you to take away from today. Homeownership is not automatically good, and renting is not automatically bad. In 2025, with today's rates, today's prices, and today's economic uncertainty, renting is genuinely the smarter financial move for a large percentage of Americans, and there is absolutely no shame in that. The real wealth builder is making intentional, informed decisions, not following a cultural script written decades ago in a completely different market. If this gave you a new way to look at things, drop a comment below. I want to hear where you stand on this. And if you want me to break down the actual numbers for your specific situation, how to calculate your rent versus by break-even point, that video is coming next week. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. I'll see you there.